with Steven Spielberg when you went in to do Hook, that he felt that the
Steven
two...
Spielberg, I find quite confused in his recollection of me. He talked more about his personal life. I know more about, him and his life and Amy Irving and what have you than I probably said about my own life.
Julia Roberts and Steven Spielberg have been locked in a feud ever since their infamous clash on the set of Hook. But this time, the drama has escalated to an explosive new level. Spielberg's anger has reached its peak as Julia is no longer keeping quiet. After years of simmering tension, she's finally exposing not just their on-set disputes, but some deeply hidden secrets. Rumor has it that Spielberg's fascination with young artists led him to attend Diddy's notorious parties, and Julia's got receipts. Word on the street is that she's handed over some damning evidence to the FBI, and now the authorities are on Spielberg's trail. Could this be the beginning of his downfall? Of course, Hollywood is no stranger to explosive feuds. Look at Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep during Kramer vs. Kramer, where Hoffman's intense method acting collided with Streep's professionalism. Their behind-the-scenes tension mirrored the drama unfolding on screen. Similarly, the Spielberg-Roberts feud traces back to a tumultuous time in Julia's personal life, following her breakup with Kiefer Sutherland. Both have reflected on how the drama bled into their professional relationship. But now, with new allegations surfacing, things are heating up like never before. In the 1991 fantasy film Hook, Julia Roberts was cast as the whimsical Tinkerbell. But behind the scenes, things were far from magical. Early in production, Roberts earned the nickname Tinker Hell from the crew due to her emotional volatility on set, described as sometimes somber, sometimes at the near edge of hysteria. It was a stark contrast to the carefree fairy she was portraying, and her behavior caused notable disruptions during filming. At the time, Roberts was going through a highly publicized breakup with Kiefer Sutherland, and the intense media scrutiny surrounding her personal life began to take its toll. The pressure of the spotlight, compounded by her own emotional struggles, left her feeling isolated. Roberts would spend hours in her trailer, often arriving late to set, leading to tension between her and director Steven Spielberg, who reportedly considered recasting her, a decision that would have both been costly and devastating for her. It was not a great time for Julia and I to be working together. Despite the friction, both Roberts and Spielberg managed to push through, with neither allowing their personal differences to affect the final product. The tension that built between them remained mostly off-screen, but the constant media attention on their crumbling relationship undoubtedly drove Julia awry, making the entire production a grueling experience for the actress.
Whatever kind of movies I make, and I am not responsible for their, for the acceptance of those films and what happens after those films are released. I mean, everybody goes for a home run.
And let's be real, the timing wasn't doing her any favors. She was only 23 at the time and engaged to fellow actor Kiefer Sutherland, the son of Hollywood legend Donald Sutherland. Now Kiefer was already making a name for himself, especially after starring in The Lost Boys with Jason Patric and Corey Haim. Roberts and Sutherland had met while filming Flatliners in 1990, right after Sutherland's divorce from his first wife. And before long, they were head over heels, with a wedding date set for June 14, 1991. Unfortunately, that date just so happened to be right around the time Hook was wrapping up. But as fairy tales often do, this one took a dark twist. Roberts found out mid-production that Sutherland had allegedly cheated on her with an exotic dancer, right before their wedding no less. And, in an even wilder turn of events, rumors started swirling that Roberts herself had gotten a little too close to Sutherland's best friend, Jason Patric, just before the wedding. So, on what should have been their big day, instead of walking down the aisle, Sutherland was seen packing his bags and moving out, while Roberts jetted off to Ireland with, you guessed it, Jason Patric. But when she heard what Spielberg had said about her, it devastated her even more, since she had reportedly discussed her situation with him as a friend. After the interview aired, Roberts told Vanity Fair, "Hand to God, not a thing I read about that was truthful, and it really hurt my feelings. Because not only did it make me sound mean, but it was a situation where people who knew the truth talked about it in a way that wasn't untruthful. I saw that with my eyes popped out of my head. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that this person that I knew and trusted was actually hesitating to come to my defense. It was a hard lesson to learn. It was the first time that I felt I had a turncoat in my midst." She even did a separate interview to clear her name of the allegations.
With Steven Spielberg when you went in to do Hook, that he felt that the
Steven
two...
Spielberg, I find quite confused in his recollection of me.
The tabloids, of course, had an absolute field day. Suddenly, everyone wanted more juicy details on the love triangle, and poor Julia had to deal with all this while still filming Hook. It's no wonder the relentless tabloid attention spilled over into her mood on set, making an already tense situation even more chaotic. Talk about drama. Anyway, even when Spielberg definitely tried to push the burden of the flopped movie on Julia Roberts, insiders spilled the tea that the film was facing other problems, which had nothing to do with Julia and everything to do with Spielberg. In case you don't know, the filming of Hook began on February 19th and finished in June, over a month behind schedule and overlapping the aborted wedding date. Spielberg had just returned from a brief directing hiatus after the release of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and took responsibility for the delays in Joseph McBride's 1997 book, Spielberg, a biography. That included several factors unconnected to Roberts. Co-star Dustin Hoffman was a fastidious method actor, for instance, and his perfectionism often resulted in delays. Similarly, the film featured many child actors in the cast, who required shortened working hours to comply with child labor laws. Finally, like many Spielberg films, Hook came rife with expensive sets and visual effects, which included several practical effects. All of that combined to delay the film considerably, with a 76-day shooting schedule expanding to 116 days and a budget that ballooned from $48 million to upwards of $80 million.
They all discriminate against filmmakers, sort of rattling our timbers, shaking our timbers to say, we don't care about you, we want the stories you're telling.
Listen, to be honest, the people Spielberg has been great friends with are Oprah and Harvey Weinstein. If that is not a great window into Spielberg's character, I don't know what is. In a disturbing revelation about the creation of Indiana Jones, a behind-the-scenes conversation between George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, and Lawrence Kasdan paints a troubling picture of how Indy's backstory was conceptualized. The trio discussed the idea of Indy having a relationship with a young girl, shockingly as young as 12 years old. Lucas suggested the idea of an affair between Indiana Jones and the girl, with Spielberg chiming in that she could be made to appear older and promiscuous to justify this inappropriate relationship. At one point, Spielberg commented that it would be amusing if the girl, despite being 12, initiated the relationship with Indy. Kasdan pushed back slightly, but the discussion continued, with Lucas even suggesting that having her be 15 years old would make the dynamic interesting, but less so if she were any older. This conversation is beyond troubling. It's wild to think that some of the most famous creative minds in Hollywood were brainstorming about how to make a deeply inappropriate relationship seem dynamic or even interesting. It leaves a lot of people shaking their heads, wondering what the actual F were they thinking at the time. She had better be older than 22 and promiscuous. She came on to him. She has pictures of him. Looking back now, it raises serious questions about the thought process behind Indiana Jones and the casual way these men discussed such an inappropriate storyline. It looks like Spielberg wanted to jump ship the moment Bull started sinking in controversy. While CBS decided to renew the show despite the SH allegations against its star, Michael Weatherly, Spielberg and his production company, Amblin TV, quietly distanced themselves from the mess. Funny how they stuck around as executive producers while the show was raking in the cash, but as soon as the scandal hit the fan, Spielberg bailed. This all started when Eliza Dushku accused Weatherly of H on her set. Instead of being supported, she got written off the show, and CBS later paid her $9.5 million to settle the matter. Weatherly apologized, saying he didn't mean any harm, but that didn't stop Spielberg from pulling out. During the course of taping our show, I made some jokes mocking some lines in the script. When Eliza told me that she wasn't comfortable with my language and attempted humor, I was mortified to have offended her and immediately apologized. After reflecting on this further, I better understand that what I said was both not funny and not appropriate, and I am sorry and regret the pain this caused Eliza. Now let's be real. Spielberg's been vocal about supporting Time's Up, and even had meetings with Dushku to discuss Systemic A in Hollywood. But actions speak louder than words. When the show got too hot to handle, he backed away fast, leaving CBS to deal with the fallout. He said, "We sat and brainstormed and discussed possible solutions for this systemic imbalance of power, the A and H that we've been seeing and hearing and experiencing, and both in our industry and beyond." It looks like Spielberg's loyalty only runs as deep as the controversy allows. If you think about it, Spielberg could have supported the film by booting Weatherly and giving Eliza a way out of the drama. But no, he just backed up, even when he had the power to help her. Honestly, his actions are even more more bizarre because he himself claimed that he knew what was happening on set, but chose to turn a blind eye.
I was shocked, but I wasn't surprised, because if you have peripheral vision, you're going to sense these things out of the corner of your eye. You can't not.
And when the essay allegations against Tom Hanks came out, he was also the loudest voice that literally stood by the victims. He said, "If our movie has anything to do with opening up that conversation, I'm happy to have helped make that contribution. It's an important conversation, and we can't stop having it, because if we stop having this conversation, it'll become just another news cycle. This watershed moment has to make permanent change in our country, the way men look at women, approach women, treat women." The director also addressed then-President Donald Trump and claimed he has changed the way Americans consume news in light of the subject of his new film. He explained, "Americans are listening to the news with new ears. They see the truth being labeled fake if the truth doesn't please those who are calling it out as fake. And of course, when the news does please those in power, they call it the truth. If it doesn't please them, they call it fake or alternative facts. And I said, this is the time to tell the story when we can all become part of this national conversation." As sweet as it sounds, I still can't get his actions out of my head. If these really were his core beliefs, he wouldn't have had a problem supporting Eliza in the film. And it seems like fans are on the same page as us. Steven Spielberg, Amblin, Nambla. Why did he get huge movie contracts after his first short film? What was Amblin actually about? What do the contents of the case infer? Is the subversion too good or just enough? Which films followed? Keep digging. Some actors haven't been shy about throwing shade Spielberg's way, like Crispin Glover. Yep, George McFly from Back to the Future. Glover didn't hold back, penning an essay that raised eyebrows about Spielberg's real relationship with none other than Michael Jackson. Apparently, Jackson was supposed to play Peter Pan in Spielberg's version of the story. And well, we all know MJ's rep, so this connection raised a few red flags. Now Spielberg's no longer buddying up with Jackson. Smart move. But Glover's essay planted the seed of doubt. Was Spielberg hiding some skeletons in his closet too? The conspiracy mill started grinding away, with folks suggesting Spielberg's tight-knit association with Michael Jackson was more than just Hollywood handshakes.
Michael Jackson was supposed to play Peter Pan in Steven Spielberg's version of the story. Now people don't like Michael Jackson, and Steven doesn't associate with Michael Jackson.
Suddenly, Spielberg's name was getting lumped together with rumors of a dark side of Tinseltown, one tied to people like Jackson. And to make things worse, Spielberg and Tom Hanks started trending for the wrong reasons at the same time. Coincidence? People weren't so sure, especially after actor Isaac Cappy, rest in peace, took to the web claiming Spielberg and Hanks had harmed others. Yep, the plot thickened.
Steven Spielberg is a pedophile. Oh, I'm not going to talk about Tom Hanks either, who is also a pedophile.
Not to mention, Steven Spielberg also had a case of inappropriate behavior in his own company. The award-winning filmmaker has helmed more than 60 movies during his career, including blockbusters such as Jaws and the Indiana Jones franchise. But Spielberg revealed he had a case of misconduct in his own company, which is now run by women. Spielberg told The Guardian newspaper, "There was some inappropriate behavior years and years ago inside my own company, which we dealt with and dismissed the person involved in that. But I've always had small companies with no more than 70 employees, and my companies have always been run by women. I find when companies are run by women, there's less of a chance for men to get away with that kind of behavior." Spielberg once admitted that he knew Harvey Weinstein was a bully in Hollywood, but claimed the rest of Weinstein's sleazy behavior caught him off guard. According to Spielberg, he only learned about the misconduct allegations when the bombshell story dropped. In his own words, "I knew he was a bully, but the other stuff, yeah, that was news to me." Sure, Spielberg acknowledged that shady casting couch situations were practically written into Hollywood's history books. He even threw it back to Shakespeare's time for good measure. But as for Weinstein's rampant misconduct, apparently Spielberg was out of the loop until it hit the headlines. It's a bit hard to swallow, knowing about Weinstein's bullying, but being blissfully unaware of the rest, especially in an industry with a long track record of misconduct. Maybe Spielberg really missed all the red flags, or maybe he just conveniently looked the other way until that 8.2 earthquake shook things up for everyone. Either way, it seems the whole "I didn't know" line is starting to feel more like a Hollywood script. Meanwhile, Spielberg recently threw his support behind Oprah Winfrey for a potential presidential run, claiming she'd be absolutely brilliant in the Oval Office. After Oprah delivered a powerful speech on SH during this year's Golden Globes, Spielberg didn't waste any time suggesting she should seriously consider a political career. If she declares, I will back her, he declared, praising her for years of social outreach and ability to connect different viewpoints. But let's be real here. Spielberg and Oprah were part of the Hollywood elite that ran with the likes of Harvey Weinstein. So when Spielberg sings Oprah's praises, it feels like a couple of shipwrecked sailors tossing life vests to each other while the water's still rising. It's hard not to see this as an attempt to distance themselves from the scandal, hoping to emerge smelling like roses instead of rotten eggs. Sure, they're all about change now, but let's not forget who was cozying up to the problematic players in the industry. With all the drama swirling around, their comments sound less like genuine endorsement and more like tactical retreat to avoid sinking with the ship. Remember when Hollywood said that Mel Gibson was crazy because he said that Hollywood elites killed innocent children and drank their bee? Anytime Hollyweird or the media calls out someone, it means that they fear this person will expose the truth. These were Mel Gibson's accusations before he was blacklisted from Hollywood. Hollywood is an institutionalized PDF ring. It is a den of parasites who feast on the bee of children. Every studio in Hollywood is bought and paid for with the blood of innocent children. Hollywood studios are drenched in the bee of innocent children. Baby's bee is so popular in Hollywood that it basically operates as a currency of its own. Hollywood elites are an enemy to mankind, breaking every God-given taboo known to man, including the sanctity of children. It's an open secret in Hollywood. These people have their own religious and spiritual teachings and their own social and moral frameworks. They have their sacred texts. They are sick, believe me, and they couldn't be more at odds with what America stands for. Yeah, that is how bad it is, and Spielberg is just the tip of the iceberg. That's all for today. We hope you enjoyed that video, and if you did, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos like this.